Do you know the difference between a tornado and a divorce in the South? No difference. Either way, someone loses a trailer. Robin Williams, the first studied forensic medicine and have a doctoral degree in molecular biology. At the beginning of my career, I worked in an FBI laboratory and then for several years worked as a pathologist in a large hospital. However, I got tired of working for the boss, so when I turned 40, I opened my own firm specializing in DNA analysis. RHT Labs, my full name is Robert Henry Thomas, provides reliable DNA tests to government agencies, businesses, attorneys, and private individuals. My love for science came from my mother and business acumen from my father. I'm not insanely rich, but I've opened 3 laboratories in a major city in the Midwest and I'm thriving. My wife Melissa, shortened to Liz, was my college sweetheart. We met in the middle of sophomore year and were together just a few weeks later. She studied biology and secondary education. We got married 6 months after graduation, during the holidays at the end of my first semester in graduate school. She taught at the local high school. We were madly in love with each other, overflowing with happiness, and everything was going great. 4 years after our marriage, Tracy Lynn was born. 2 years later, Robert Henry Thomas II, or Hank, as we called him, joined her. Liz enjoyed being a mom, but she also continued to teach as an assistant in our school district. Eventually, she returned to teaching full-time when Tracy was in 3rd grade and Hank was in 1st. My children were 12 and 10 years old when I became a private entrepreneur. The first year or so was tough. I worked long hours and went through personnel until I found a suitable team of people who liked hard work, good pay, and benefits. They quickly realized they were working for an owner who was stricter with himself than anyone else. Now, at 47, marriage, children, work, and our lakeside cottage occupy most of my world. We bought our home by the lake about 10 years ago. It was in fairly rundown condition, so we got it at a good price and didn't mind working together to fix it up. When school let out for summer, Liz and the kids spent about 85% of their time there. I shortened my work week to 4 days in June, July, and August to enjoy long weekends with our loving team. These years in our marriage have had their ups and downs. Mostly ups, but like any couple, we have our disagreements from time to time. We can both be stubborn, but we rarely stay mad at each other for more than a couple of hours. Neither of us likes being at odds with each other, so we quickly admit where we were wrong and smooth things over. No marriage is perfect, but I wouldn't trade mine for anything in the world. Until recently, Tracy was in her 2nd year of college, which meant Hank would be heading off to school in the fall too. We were all eagerly awaiting our summer cottage by the lake, knowing our time together as a family of 4 was limited. Tracy had a boyfriend, and although neither Liz nor I thought he was the one, we knew it would probably be a few more years before she brought home that special someone we would meet. We would welcome an addition to the family whenever it happened, but we also cherished the time we still had with our little, close-knit team. It was late spring, and Liz spent the last 2 weekends at the lake, getting the house ready for opening. It was her ritual with those kinds of tasks since we became homeowners of that place. It gave her time for herself, meaning the cottage would look the way she liked, and she would have evenings to sit, read, and enjoy a glass of wine without any interruptions from me or the kids. Back home, the two of us had our own traditions, like attending a baseball game at the start of the season in St. Louis or Chicago. Every Sunday evening, when Liz returned from what she called prep weekends, she seemed a bit off. I couldn't quite grasp what it was, but my wife was clearly not herself. The second Sunday, when she returned in the same mood, I asked her if everything was okay. She snapped at me, which she rarely did, and stormed out of the room. What? I thought and kept my distance from her for the next few hours. Before going to bed, she apologized for her behavior. "I'm sorry, Henry. I shouldn't have been so sharp with you earlier. Please forgive my rude behavior." "Of course, Liz," I replied. "Forgive me if I upset you in any way. I was just worried that you weren't quite yourself." "I'm fine, Henry," she replied, not looking at me. "Maybe I'm just a little tired from all the work at the lake." "All right, dear, how about a back scratch?" I suggested. "That would be perfect," she murmured. Liz loves it when her back gets scratched. After a few minutes of innocent back scratching, my hands began to wander. We were still very physically close and active. Sometimes the kids would come down for breakfast and see us grinning from ear to ear, holding each other tightly. More often than not, it's Tracy who tells us, "Shush," or Please, go to your room and free us. Hank blushes slightly and giggles. Usually, when she returns home from the lake, she's in good spirits. Tonight, when I started to initiate her, she didn't even roll over, just sighed deeply and said, "Thanks for scratching, darling, but not tonight, okay?" I wasn't shocked. I've been turned down as many times as any normal man. But given our recent description, it surprised me. Unfortunately, I found out too soon what the matter was. If you live in the Midwest, you face the danger of tornadoes. Just as with earthquakes in California or hurricanes on the East Coast, residents of our part of the country are well aware of the threat tornadoes pose. Night never brings the question, if, but always, when, and where. This year, it was our turn. A third-grade tornado can reach wind speeds of up to 250 kilometers per hour, while a fifth-grade tornado can reach speeds of over 300 kilometers per hour. On Monday evening, after Liz returned from her second outing for groceries, a third-grade tornado hit about a kilometer from our house. I immediately called our neighbors at Lakeview, Eric and Bev Parsons. Their house was approximately 100 meters away from ours. They were retirees and lived at the lake year-round. Eric answered after the second ring. "Henry, we've just had a terrible storm here. Are you and Bev okay, Eric? Is there anything I can do for you?" "We're fine, Henry. Thanks for asking. No serious damage nearby. I quickly checked your house and found a few broken windows, lots of branches, and other debris scattered around, but nothing major. The rain has stopped, so I boarded up your windows this morning. You don't need to rush over here tonight." "Thanks, Eric. I'm glad you're okay. I'll come over first thing in the morning. I'll bring you a dozen donuts with Krispy Kreme as a token of my gratitude. Save your money, Henry. Bev will just find those damn products and make me throw them out. She's adamant that the food she considers unhealthy is simply intolerable. Sometimes it drives me crazy. Well, maybe I'll just bring them over and leave them with you at home. I'll call when I'm on my way if I need any help." "Well, this might work, Henry. Good night, and see you in the morning." I informed the office that I wouldn't be there for a couple of days. Truth be told, they probably got more done without me. My assistant, Shelby, told me she wasn't sure how they would manage without me, but they would try. Liz offered to come and help me, but as soon as I explained that we had escaped most of the serious damage, she decided to stay home and work. We also realized that leaving an 18-year-old alone for a couple of days would be unfortunate if he was looking for a place where it could happen. I headed to the lake and spent the next couple of days assembling and preparing to install 3 new windows. Eric came over and helped me with some of it, and I did the same for him. If anyone did eat any donuts, I'm not saying. It was noon on Wednesday, and most of the major cleanup was done. Liz had placed the garbage bin next to the mailbox before leaving on Sunday, as the trip to the lake was scheduled for Tuesday. Due to the storm, its contents were still scattered around the yard. The bin itself had been blown onto the street. Rolling it back into place, I began the final task, filling it with the items strewn across the lawn. I was nearly finished when I noticed something resembling a Ziploc bag at the far end of our yard. Upon closer inspection, it was indeed a clear plastic bag. There was nothing strange about that, but its contents appeared to be discarded clothing. I picked it up and saw something resembling one of Liz's swimsuits, a blouse, and panties. Upon opening it, a mixture of scents hit my nostrils. Human sweat and other bodily secretions had been tightly enclosed for at least 3 days. Remember, I deal with DNA analysis. I recognized something familiar in the aroma from working with scents in our labs. I picked up the blouse. 4 out of 6 buttons were missing. Both swimsuits and panties were stained with dried semen. I felt my lunch creeping back up my throat, though I tried my best to swallow it down. I lost. How could this have happened? Liz and I hadn't been together at the lake since the Thanksgiving weekend, and as far as I could remember, it was a big family weekend, so sex wasn't on the menu. I knew enough to understand that the contents of the bag had been in there for no more than a few days. A nearly 25-year marriage, built on love and dedication to the cause, suddenly rocked at its core. I took my newly acquired items to the porch, sat down, and forced myself to think. Obviously, Liz knew I wouldn't show up at the lake until Tuesday morning when the garbage collector came. There was no need to hide anything, as everything would have disappeared long before my first spring visit. But who? Our house was far enough from Eric's home for someone to come and go unnoticed. I also recalled how it seemed to me that Liz was out of sorts when she returned from both weekends. Was it because she was coming home after being with him? How long had she been cheating on me? Was it someone who lived here, or did they just meet here? Someone she worked with? A neighbor? Was he clean? Could I have contracted a sexually transmitted disease? My head was spinning, and I found it difficult to breathe. I tried to keep my composure, but it wasn't easy. I wasn't in the right state to go home. After an hour, I came to an instant decision. I called Liz to say that I needed to do a few more things here and that I had already had a few beers. It would be better if I stayed overnight and returned to the city early in the morning. The lake house was just an hour's drive away, so I could get up at 6 and be in the office by my usual 8. I'm glad there wasn't too much damage, Liz said when I told her my plan. I just wanted you to come home tonight. I wanted to make up for the lack of enthusiasm on Sunday. Sorry, Liz, but see you tomorrow. Goodbye, darling. I love you. Good night, Liz. I couldn't bring myself to tell her I loved her. I had a couple or 5 glasses of bourbon and eventually fell into a fitful sleep until 5 a.m. On the way home, I made several decisions and also made a few phone calls. I would conduct the DNA analysis myself, so I needed to go straight to the lab and start it before anyone else arrived. Secondly, I called my lawyer, Tom Kincaid, and briefed him on the situation. Finally, I called a friend I had worked with at the FBI, who also worked in the private sector, and told him what I needed. By the end of the day, I had dealt with 2 out of 3 matters. Tom and I met for a couple of hours over lunch. Bad news. Despite everything, in the divorce, she would get 50% of all assets. Even if the kids grow up and perhaps decide to live with me, financially she'll be just fine. How twisted our system is, I thought. To break vows to the people you claim to love and get financial compensation. Secondly, my friend managed to pull some strings and install state-of-the-art surveillance equipment in the lake house, undetectable by anyone. Not that it would help much in the divorce, but I needed evidence of her infidelity. I was by no means going to let her play the victim in front of our friends and family. If necessary, I would actively use social media. Liz would probably stand financially, but she wouldn't leave this marriage without damage to her reputation. My third project was the DNA identification process. Obviously, Liz's results were easy to determine, but finding the unknown person took more time. Hopefully, not until the end of the workday tomorrow if I'm lucky. I came home, hugged the kids, and pecked Liz on the cheek. Everyone was curious about my last day. I took pictures on my phone, so everyone gathered around, peering over my shoulder as I told the story. Despite her duplicity, it was clear Liz was worried about our second home. She had as many wonderful memories as the rest of us, and we had been together for a long time. I kept talking in an even tone, trying to maintain composure. She stood so close, looking at my phone, that her scent filled my nostrils. Usually, this would eventually start arousing me. Tonight, her scent made me feel sad. I purposely took a photo of the garbage scattered around the yard. Before returning, I edited the picture and made the zippered bag slightly larger in the frame. Despite my pain, I decided a little brainstorming wouldn't hurt. I mean, look at all this trash. You wouldn't believe how much I had to gather and pack, I said, lingering a second or two longer on this photo. I felt Liz tense for a moment. Later that night, as we got into bed, Liz reached out to me. I think she felt me tense up when she hugged me and pulled closer to me. "Are you okay, Henry? What's wrong, honey?" Usually, I would turn over and we would talk almost nose to nose. Tonight, I just turned away from her. Just tired, I lied. All this work at the lake house. Then last night, I drank too much. Then early morning and a long day. Thank you for taking care of all this, Henry. I know it was hard. Maybe I should have gone with you and helped. It's okay, Liz, but I really think you should go there next week after you finish school on Monday, and make sure the windows were installed correctly and everything meets your standards. I think we would all feel relieved knowing that you're here and taking care of our family's interests. Of course, Henry, I've been thinking about that too. I'll stop by after school. Our last workday will be half a day, so maybe I can be back by Tuesday evening. Don't rush, Liz. I just want to make sure everything is as you like it. You mean more to me than anything. If she caught any of the hints I dropped, she didn't show it. Her hand slid down my torso. How about I help you feel better, my loving husband? Now I must pause for a moment and say with relative certainty that I have never in my life refused sex with Liz. Never. To me, she has always been the most beautiful woman in the world. Her appearance, her intelligence, her personality, it was all enchanting, and if I could breathe, I would be ready for sexual pleasures. Tonight I was barely holding back tears. I'm sorry, Liz, but I'm completely exhausted. She stopped her caresses, and I heard a quiet sigh escape her lips. Oh, of course, Henry. You need to get a good rest. I love you. I love you too, I replied, dropping the word, love, and hoping it would go unnoticed. Lying in the darkness, I realized that my marriage was probably over. I couldn't simply abandon my love for Liz, but I would never trust her again. She had evidently found something lacking in our relationship and filled it with another man. She lied to me and betrayed our family. She never left the house anymore unless I questioned where she was going and who she was meeting. The thought of her spending 4 days a week at the lake house without me was utterly unbearable. Whoever he was in our lake house with my wife. Probably in our marital bed, where they were having sex. No, I couldn't bear such disrespect. At 4:30 a.m., I stopped tossing and turning. Liz was fast asleep when I took a shower, got dressed, and headed to the office. Unusual for a Saturday, but not unheard of. She called me around 7 a.m. I forwarded the call to voicemail. I rarely do that, she wrote. Hope you got some rest and are feeling better. I love you. I didn't respond for an hour. Sorry, last minute rush on an important order. I think we'll catch up tonight. Still tired. I added a heart emoji. It was the best I could do under the circumstances. Despite it being a Saturday, I called Tom at 9 and asked him to start preparing divorce papers. In our state, marital infidelity is grounds for divorce, although it wouldn't matter in court. Still, I wasn't going to engage in irreconcilable differences. I told him to have everything ready by next week. By 3 in the afternoon, I had the name Kenneth Glenn Lester. The name seemed familiar, but I couldn't recall from where. The information I found through a Google search did the trick. Lester had been the club manager at the lake for the past 3 years. He was just over 30, and he had spent a couple of years in prison for burglary and home invasion when he was 20. I learned about him from Eric, who said he was a good guy who had made a lot of mistakes in his youth but was now making the most of his second chance. From my limited interaction with him, Lester always seemed polite when we went to the club for dinner. He ran the operation well and maintained friendly relationships with everyone. If something was amiss, Lester fixed it all. As far as I could tell, he worked hard and smart. Apparently, he made a strong impression on my wife, turning her into his. I guess she just couldn't resist the temptation of sleeping with a guy 12 years younger. It must have done something to her ego. I wasn't sure how I'd spend the next 2 days until Liz left for the lake. My sadness began to morph into anger, and I was afraid I might explode on her. The good news was that the school baseball team Hank played for had several games that weekend, so I could attend them closer to the evening. Liz would probably be at one or both of them. Being together in public would be much easier than being alone at home. I could have worked an extra hour or two every day without raising any suspicions. If Liz asked, I could always say I was working more to avoid accumulating when I start going to the lake house in a couple of weeks. Getting into bed would be a different problem, but I was never going to have sex with my unfaithful wife. I had no idea what Lester might have passed on to her, and I wanted no part of it, no matter how much time had passed. Those were tough 2 days. Liz continued to try to make up for her guilt, and my excuses seemed unconvincing even to myself. By Sunday evening, her disappointment had turned into anger. I hope by the time I get back from the lake house, you'll pull your head out of your ass, she hissed at me before pulling the blanket over her side of the bed. Good night. On Monday, I got up early and left without saying goodbye. Hank texted me on the way to school that morning. Dad, I heard Mom crying this morning. Is she okay? It's tough right now, Hank, but I'm sure she'll be okay. Okay, love you, Dad. Love you, son. I placed the phone on the table and shed tears myself. How the hell did life mess everything up so quickly? Later, after lunch, Liz sent a message. Thank you for the warm and loving wishes today. You're such an idiot now. Be careful, Liz. See you soon. Remember, try to make everything to your liking. That's the most important thing. As you wish. Later that same evening, Hank was out with friends, and I watched a live feed from the lake house provided by my FBI friend. Of course, in our living room, cuddled closely together on the couch, were my loving wife and her lover, Lester the gardener, as I aptly named him. Her head rested on his shoulder as he stroked her hair. Do you really think he knows? I don't understand how he could, babe. It's only been since Thanksgiving and just 8 times. We've been too discreet. I don't see how he could find out. I'm sure you're right, but he's been acting so strange since he came back last Thursday after the storm. He even turned me down 3 times for sex. Well, let me help make up for the lack of attention. Lester smirked as his hand, resting on her shoulder, grazed her chest. Lester, please. I enjoy how you turn my world upside down in bed, but I truly love my husband and our family. I'm not willing to lose that either. We both know this is just an affair. It's not love and it never will be. For all I know, you're probably sleeping with at least 2 or 3 other married women. You're right, Liz. I don't want to pretend to be anything more than just a fun distraction. Nonetheless, I do genuinely care about you and don't want you to suffer. By the way, if you don't mind my asking, was I the first guy you slept with outside of marriage? I'm not judging, just curious. Liz fell silent for a moment. Damn it all, I thought. I didn't believe it could get any worse. There was one more, about 5 years ago. He was the new administrator in our county, and he was damn attractive. I don't know what came over me, but for some reason, he chose me, and I didn't resist. We did it for about 6 months before I came to my senses. To be honest, I caught him having sex with the vice principal of the school. I slapped him so hard I think he saw stars for a couple days. Mike Jensen, I thought to myself. That slimy bastard was so smug next to me, and now I know why. He slept with my trashy wife. Remind me never to cross you, Liz. By the way, honestly, I'm flirting with Julie Mitchell and Kim Ferguson. I know you don't care, as we're just having an affair, but I want you to know. None of us have any venereal diseases. I'm very careful. Nice to meet you, buddy. I knew about Julie. Kim is kind of a surprise, as she seems like such a nice girl. Well, since we both know it's just casual, I'm tired of my man neglecting me all week, so why don't you drag me to bed, darling, and make me feel like a real woman? I switched to the hidden camera in the bedroom and watched for about 10 minutes. That was 9 minutes longer than I thought I could handle. They were tearing each other's clothes off and going at it hard. My loving wife gave her boyfriend an amazing blowjob, after which he lifted her up on the bed, put her on all fours and started taking her from behind. She moaned and breathed heavily. Between moans, she begged him. Yes, right here, please. Oh, so damn good. Yes, please, right here, hard. I turned it off, went to the bathroom, and threw up. On Tuesday, I texted Tracy and told her that Hank and I needed to talk to her. At noon, I shared the ugly truth with my children. It broke my heart, but I couldn't sugarcoat the situation or pretend that what their mom did was untrue. I was sad, and I cried most of the time. They both cried too, but eventually said they would try to understand and support. I told them that I was going to give their mom a chance to come clean to me on Wednesday evening. If she did, we had a small chance of success. Obviously, they wouldn't be able to say anything they knew if they talked to their mom. Tracy invited Hank to stay until the end of the week, as he had no school commitments, and she was going to summer classes before returning home. I thought it was amazing of her to think of her younger brother when her own heart was broken. When Liz walked in the door around 4 o'clock, I was waiting for her in the study. I was sitting in my leather chair sipping bourbon, carefully. She glided across the room, dropping her purse and a bag, intending to plop down on my lap. I guessed that after the wrestler Lester had just taken her, she was happy and in a good mood about her scumbag husband. I raised my hand to keep her at arm's length. She noticed the very serious expression on my face. What's wrong, Henry? I gestured to the couch. Please, have a seat, Liz. Can I offer you something to drink? No, I'm fine. But now please tell me, Henry, what the hell is wrong? Oh God, are the kids okay? The kids are fine, Liz. No need to worry. I noticed she relaxed slightly upon hearing this good news. Unfortunately, things will probably go downhill from here. Liz, I'm going to give you one and only one chance. Do you want to tell me something, Liz? Or should I ask if there's anything you'd like to tell me, Liz? I expect full honesty from you, my dear wife, and in return, I will be completely honest with you. Please think carefully before you answer. Henry, what am I supposed to tell you? The lake house is fine. The kids are fine. We haven't had any disagreements for a few months until just a few days ago. Our sex life has usually been very good. What do you want me to say? My hopes for any progress were crumbling with each passing second. Liz, I've been honest with you throughout our entire marriage. I've never lied, deceived, or distorted the truth to you. I'm not perfect, far from it. I don't always get it right, but being completely honest with you has always been one of my top priorities in our relationship. So, I'll ask one last time, Liz. Is there anything you need to be honest with me about? That's when our marriage fell apart. Honestly, Henry, I have no idea what you're looking for or talking about. Tears welled up in my eyes. I'm so terribly sad, Liz. I'm so sad that you despise me in our marriage like this. I guess I'll never know what I did to deserve your betrayal and disloyalty. I thought we would always be together until death do us part. Now I know that wasn't and will never be the case. Liz, I know all about your lovers, Ken Lester and Mike Jensen. Liz's face turned ashen gray in an instant. She opened her mouth, covering it with her hand. Oh no, 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 she said in a barely audible whisper. Then louder. No, Henry, please let me explain. Oh God, what have I done? Please, Henry, they mean nothing. Nothing. I love only you. Is it true, Liz? Mike Jensen was, as you put it, damn sexy. I believe that was the term you used. And if memory serves me right, on Friday night you told Lester the wrestler that you were excited because your husband was neglecting you, so he needed to drag you into bed and make you a real woman. Sounds like neither means anything to you. How? When? Henry? How did you hear all this? Simply put, my unfaithful wife. Last week, I installed surveillance equipment after finding your soiled swimsuit and panties, soaked in semen, in a Ziploc bag that was blown out of the trash can during the storm. Your ruined blouse was also in it, but I'm sure you can replace it so Lester can tear another one off you while you devour each other. DNA analysis was quite straightforward for obvious reasons. You mean to say you were spying on me and Lester? No, Liz. It was all recorded, but I stopped watching after you performed oral sex on him and he started doing doggy style with you on the bed. I thought that was just for us. As soon as you started moaning like a bitch in heat, I turned off the TV, went to the bathroom, and threw up. Now Liz was crying, unable to cope with my revelations. I didn't try to comfort her or continue describing her escapades. I simply sat in silence, under the cover of pain that enveloped my heart like the darkest of nights. After a few minutes, she began to regain her composure. What can I do, Henry? How can I make things right? Please tell me we can fix this. I can't imagine my life without you, without our shared home, without our world. Please, Henry, tell me there's a way out of this mess. There is a way, Liz, but it won't work, and we will never be together. You've taken away my trust, my love, my promise to be with you, and you and your lovers heartlessly shattered them. I cherished you, Liz, and you spat on my love. You mocked me as a man and a husband. How could you think I would calmly watch as my wife sleeps with other men? Did you really have such a low opinion of me? I'm sorry you made your choice, Liz, but now I've made mine. The only way forward is to live separately. With these words, I leaned forward, took an envelope from manila paper, and tossed it onto the couch next to her. The envelope was marked, Petition for Divorce. No, Henry. Please, not this. We have to try to stay together for ourselves and our children. For your business and my teaching career. We can get through this. I can seek professional help. We can get counseling. We're strong, Henry. We can weather this storm. Liz, let me be clear. I'm divorcing you because of marital infidelity. You can tear up these papers and throw them away if you want. But if you do, I'll ask my lawyer to draft another copy and hand it to you at work, in front of your students and colleagues. Please, don't do this to Hank. No matter how poorly you think of me, please spare at least your son. Henry, you love me too much to do this, and I love you too much to end a 24-year marriage. Please, work with me to find a solution that will save our marriage and our family. Liz, you have no idea what real love is. You confuse comfort and security with commitment. Love is action, not just a feeling. You love someone when you're faithful to them. Love is forsaking all others. To love is to care more about someone else than yourself. Tell me, Liz, how much did you love Tracy and Hank when you were sleeping with your lovers? How much were you interested in saving our marriage when you were spreading your legs for men who were only interested in sex? Your actions reveal who you truly are, Liz. A selfish fraud and a deceitful crap. I will fight you, Henry. I will fight this divorce with all my might. I'm not giving up on us. I was starting to tire of her arrogance, and anger was boiling up inside me. Liz, you dumb crap, you're really getting on my nerves. Keep fighting if you want. Why don't you start by calling your kids and telling them what's going on? Try to convince them that you love me and our family. Do you even know where Hank is right now? He's probably at school with Tracy, crying his eyes out because his family is about to fall apart. What the hell have you done, Henry? What did you tell our kids? I sighed deeply. The truth, Liz. I simply told them the truth, that you had 2 sexual encounters with 2 different men. One was about 5 years ago, and the other was ongoing. I was honest with them, Liz, which is more than I can say for you. I didn't advise them to hate you or cut ties with you. I told them that if you come home and honestly confess to what you've done, there's a small chance our marriage could be salvaged. But today, you showed your true colors, Liz. You showed that you care more about yourself than us. What happens next, Henry? I hope we can divorce quietly, without scandal. I would gladly leave you with nothing, but in modern courts, that's not possible. However, I am suing the school district and the Lake Club. They probably won't go anywhere, but I want some people held accountable. You were the main culprit, but there were others who contributed to the downfall of our marriage. You had accomplices, and I want them to pay. Financially, you'll probably fare better than me, at least for the first few years. The custody issue is debatable, as Hank will be off to college before everything is finalized. I'm not moving. I don't care if you agree or not. I'll stay in the master bedroom. You can move to the guest room or live with Lester the wrestler. It's all the same to me. But if you don't argue with me about this, Liz, if you try to portray yourself as the victim, I'll spread recordings of the last 2 days everywhere, starting with your parents, then your siblings, friends, co-workers. I'm not a bad guy. I didn't sleep around and ruin my marriage. I won't try to cover for you. From the expression on her face, I could tell that she finally realized the extent of her actions. There was deep pain written on her face. I'm so sorry, Henry. I know you're deeply hurt by what I've done, but can I ask you to hold me for a few moments? I feel so lost. I stood up and began pacing the room, then stopped. I'm sorry, Liz, but I'll never touch you again. Liz struggled with it for a while, but ultimately it was inevitable. The divorce was settled roughly 50-50. Henry's lawyer, Tom, was right. You can cheat on your spouse, and the court will reward your infidelity and punish the victim. Fortunately for Henry, the kids were adults, so child support wasn't required. His company thrived, so even with the payout, his finances were fine. Liz wanted them to jointly maintain the lake house. Henry refused. Eventually, they agreed to place it in trust for Tracy and Hank, 50-50 for each of them. Perhaps someday Henry would return there to play with his grandchildren. He doubted it. The lawsuits led nowhere, but the angered members of the club fired Lester and drove him out of town. Julie Mitchell's and Kim Ferguson's husbands got a small portion of the recording where Lester confesses to sleeping with them. Both couples got divorced. One evening, Mike Jensen was brutally beaten as he left the gym where he worked out. 3 weeks later, it happened again. He decided to move. No one was ever connected to the assaults. Henry and Liz sold the house. Both now live in apartments at opposite ends of the city. Henry met a girl he often goes out with but still feels shy around her. There are rumors of divorce, and Liz's reputation as a submissive minx keeps her from going out in public. Tracy and Hank see both parents, though their relationship with their mother remains strained. Every time a tornado siren sounds, a sad smile crosses Henry's face, and he shrugs. Liz sits and cries. Only a tornado can stir up a real storm.
Thank you for being with us and listening until the end. If you found it interesting, please subscribe, give us a like, and leave your comments.